In this episode of the Huberman Lab Podcast, Andrew Huberman delves into the topic of dopamine and its role in driving human behavior and motivation. He provides a comprehensive overview of dopamine, dispelling common myths and providing insights into its biological and psychological effects. Huberman explains that dopamine is not just responsible for pleasure, but also for motivation, desire, and craving. It plays a crucial role in controlling time perception and movement. He emphasizes that dopamine is a neuromodulator, influencing the communication of many neurons and modulating the activity of neural circuits. The molecule is released in the brain and body, influencing the probability of certain neural circuits being active and others being inactive. The discussion delves into the two main neural circuits through which dopamine operates. The mesocortical limbic pathway is responsible for reward, reinforcement, and motivation, while the nigrostriatal pathway is involved in movement. Huberman also explains the two modes of dopamine communication: local synaptic release and volumetric release. He highlights the importance of understanding the spatial and temporal scales of dopamine transmission, as well as its slow effects through G-protein-coupled receptors. Huberman emphasizes that dopamine acts as a universal currency in driving individuals toward goals and external pursuits. The molecule stimulates action and influences the alertness and desire to pursue external activities. He explains that the experience of pleasure and motivation is subjective and depends on the individual's baseline level of dopamine and recent dopamine peaks. The discussion also touches on the impact of dopamine on gene expression and long-lasting effects on cellular behavior. Huberman emphasizes the importance of understanding dopamine's effects and leveraging it for sustained motivation and drive. He dispels the notion of dopamine hits and highlights the complex interplay between baseline dopamine levels and peak dopamine experiences. He also discusses the potential drawbacks of artificially increasing dopamine levels and the need to optimize the peak-to-baseline ratio for sustainable motivation. Huberman continues by sharing a personal experience with Giardia, a stomach bug that led to severe dehydration and weight loss. During his visit to the emergency room, he was injected with Thorazine, an antipsychotic drug that blocks dopamine receptors. This led to a profound sense of depression and misery, highlighting the powerful impact of dopamine on our mood and well-being. He emphasizes the importance of understanding and leveraging dopamine to maintain a healthy baseline and experience the peaks of pleasure in life. Huberman explains that everyone has a baseline level of dopamine, which can vary based on genetics and experiences. Certain activities and substances can increase dopamine levels above baseline, leading to transient feelings of pleasure and motivation. He discusses the average increase in dopamine caused by various activities, such as chocolate, sex, nicotine, cocaine, amphetamine, and exercise. He also highlights the subjective nature of dopamine release, as it depends on individual preferences and enjoyment of specific activities. Huberman delves into the relationship between dopamine and epinephrine, adrenaline, highlighting their close connection in driving energy, motivation, and excitement. He explains how caffeine can increase the density of dopamine receptors, allowing individuals to experience more of dopamine's effects. The podcast explores the pleasure-pain balance associated with dopamine release, emphasizing the depletion of dopamine after experiencing peaks of pleasure. Huberman discusses how engaging in activities that lead to significant dopamine spikes can result in a subsequent drop in baseline dopamine, leading to feelings of burnout and decreased motivation. Huberman shares a personal example of a friend's 30-day fast from video games, social media, and phone usage to replenish dopamine levels. He highlights the positive impact of this fast on his friend's concentration, mood, and overall well-being, emphasizing the importance of limiting interactions with dopamine-evoking behaviors or substances to replenish the releasable pool of dopamine. The podcast continues with a discussion on the optimal way to engage in activities or consume substances that evoke dopamine. Huberman emphasizes the importance of understanding the impact of dopamine on our behaviors and well-being, and the need to make informed choices to maintain a healthy baseline of dopamine while still experiencing the peaks of pleasure in life. Huberman highlights the central role of dopamine in our evolution and progression as a species. He explains that certain activities, such as eating chocolate, drinking coffee, and engaging in healthy sexual and reproductive behaviors, can trigger dopamine release. These activities are essential for our survival and have been ingrained in our evolutionary history. However, he also cautions against the negative impact of substances like cocaine and amphetamines, which can lead to detrimental effects on dopamine levels. The key to engaging in dopamine-evoking activities in a healthy and beneficial way lies in intermittent release of dopamine. Huberman explains that seeking high levels of dopamine release every time we engage in these activities can lead to a drop in our baseline dopamine levels. He draws parallels to the intermittent reward schedules used in casinos and the way social media platforms keep users engaged. By understanding the concept of intermittent reinforcement, individuals can modulate their dopamine release and maintain a healthy baseline. Huberman discusses the impact of rewards on behavior, citing a study where children were given rewards for drawing pictures. The study revealed that extrinsic rewards can diminish the intrinsic enjoyment of an activity, leading to a decrease in motivation once the rewards are removed. This highlights the complex relationship between dopamine, rewards, and our perception of time. One surprising revelation in the podcast is the potential for cold water exposure to trigger dopamine release. Huberman discusses a study where participants were exposed to cold water, resulting in a sustained increase in dopamine levels. This finding suggests that certain activities, such as cold water exposure, can lead to a long-lasting elevation of dopamine without the need for external rewards or substances. Huberman emphasizes the importance of cultivating a growth mindset, where the focus is on the effort itself rather than the end reward. He explains that accessing the rewards from effort and doing can help individuals maintain a healthy baseline of dopamine and find pleasure in the process of striving and improving. Huberman emphasizes the significance of quality, healthy social interactions in regulating dopamine levels. He explains that oxytocin, a hormone associated with social bonding, can directly stimulate the dopamine pathway, leading to increased feelings of reward and pleasure. This underscores the importance of fostering close social connections and nurturing relationships as a means of regulating dopamine and promoting overall well-being. Huberman discusses the influence of melatonin and bright light exposure on dopamine levels. He explains that melatonin, a hormone involved in regulating sleep, can decrease dopamine levels, highlighting the potential impact of melatonin supplementation on overall dopamine regulation. Additionally, he emphasizes the negative effects of bright light exposure during specific hours on dopamine levels, underscoring the importance of managing light exposure to maintain healthy dopamine levels. Huberman explores the use of supplements and nootropics as a means of modulating dopamine levels. He discusses the potential benefits and drawbacks of compounds like phenethylamine and huperzine A in stimulating dopamine release, highlighting the need for caution and informed decision-making when considering the use of these substances. Additionally, he emphasizes the importance of using high-quality supplements to ensure accurate dosing and minimize potential side effects. Huberman addresses the potential implications of dopamine regulation for mental health and overall well-being. He discusses the role of dopamine in conditions like depression and anxiety, as well as the use of pharmacological compounds like Wellbutrin, bupropion, to modulate dopamine levels. Additionally, he emphasizes the need for individualized approaches to dopamine regulation, taking into account factors like pre-existing conditions and overall health. Huberman highlights the impact of dopamine on learning and memory processes. He explains that dopamine plays a role in the hippocampus, an area of the brain associated with learning and memory, underscoring the importance of dopamine regulation in cognitive function. Additionally, he discusses the potential benefits of compounds like huperzine A in stimulating dopamine release and enhancing cognitive performance. Huberman emphasizes the need for informed decision-making when considering the use of supplements and lifestyle choices to modulate dopamine levels. He underscores the potential benefits and drawbacks of various compounds and behaviors, highlighting the importance of understanding the mechanisms behind dopamine regulation and seeking guidance from healthcare professionals when making decisions about dopamine modulation.